Okay, welcome to Fast Track Your Business with Board 10. I'm Jonathan Master, and I'm running the session today. Broadly, my role at PA is to help businesses improve using BI and planning technologies. I'm joined by Alberto, who is one of Professional Advantage's resident consulting gurus in the board application itself.
Hi, everybody.
So firstly, before we get started, I just want to go through a few things, just for everybody's awareness. First of all, you're all muted, and that's so you can all hear us uninterrupted and clearly. But during the webinar, you can ask questions. There's actually a little question box at the end, and you just type away. Put as many questions in as you want. We will dedicate some time at the end, probably 5 minutes, for those questions. If we can't answer them today, we'll store them up. Maybe we can kind of do a follow-up exercise of some sort. So feel free to ask questions. They could be specific to your configuration or just general questions. Secondly, every now and again, I'm going to poll all the attendees with a question, our own question. Okay, so I'm going to send a question out. You can quickly put your feedback, and we can actually see the results pretty immediately. So we'll just put a poll out there, is this relevant to you, yes or no, and let's see the results in action. And thirdly, just for your benefit, maybe you want to kind of bounce this around the organization, show some other people, maybe come back to it at some future point to remind yourself what you've seen today. We'll be recording this session, and it will be available on the Professional Advantage YouTube channel, and we will send you a link. Okay, so we have a few familiar names joining us today. Each organization obviously can use Board to handle its own customer-specific requirements, and some of you might use it for BI and analytics. Some of you around the financial perspective within your business, some for the non-financial, some for both. And some of you might use it for budgeting and forecasting, and we've got others in the organizations that have joined to use it for operational planning, like production scheduling, demand planning, open to buy. So it's a very diverse application. I just want a brief reminder, because you all use it in a particular way, you might not be familiar with how many uses it can be used for. So it's an integrated platform. It unifies business intelligence and performance management into a single technology, a single environment, sorry. And it can cover all these different use cases. So you could use it for the planning, forecasting, consolidation, strategy management. And when I mean integrated, it means that it's genuinely integrated in that I could be in a budget, I could simulate and model, I could be in a budget data entry template, and I could drill into and analyze the data in a kind of self-service BI way. Or I could even be in a dashboard where I might basically allow the ability to update a forecast. So we're able to do all those things within the context of a single user experience. So that's just a very brief highlight reminder. Okay. I think one of our customers put it in a very good way. It kind of encapsulated what Board can achieve. This is the name the Suntory Japanese parent company gave the Board solution at Suntory Australia. They called it the Izumi, or Spring of Knowledge. Okay, so it was far more than budgeting and forecasting within their organization. They really saw it as a way of surfacing insight into their business, growing their net brand contribution, making their campaigns successful, ensuring their distributors basically kept their promises. If you look at it like that, that's a very powerful statement of what a technology can add to a business. Before we go any further, I'm actually going to ask the first poll question. I'm going to ask, what version are you on? Okay, are you on one of the earliest versions, version 7, We've got 8, 9, and obviously the most recent version, version 10. And you might not know, so don't hesitate to put unknown. Let's see a quick straw poll about basically where you all are on the current versions. I'll just allow a little bit of time for that. So you can see quite a few on version 9, but there are some people on who are on very early versions. So, okay, so we basically you're going to see a lot today that potentially you might not be even aware of because version 9 actually introduced a lot of new features. So, you know, what I would say there is there's definitely a strong follow-up there to understand exactly what the capability is, but we will obviously be covering version 10 today. So again, a reminder again of board and how it's configured for all these different applications and uses, for all your different organizational uses, and its flexibility. At the heart of the board application is a modeling tool, the Toolkit. Now, if you're a user, if you're a finance manager or a budget, manager, you won't be necessarily aware of that. You'll just come in and basically handle your budget. But underneath, basically, there's a toolkit that rendered that application up for you and provided it so you could kind of do your updates and handle your workflows. So that modeling toolkit basically is a very powerful capability. What it means is we can configure capsules, user experiences, data entry sheets, reports, workflows, procedures, and business rules, and we can leverage multiple data sources. So one of the key things there is we can take information from all parts of your business and unify it and provide a kind of single source of truth up to the end user. And that means we can kind of provide data into self-service dashboards, simulations and planning, and even use predictive analytical functions. And just to remind people that that's a no-code environment as well. We're not compiling any code in order to do this. It's configuration. So now I've just given you a bit of an overview, and like I said, you might not all be aware basically of board in its wider use. You might be using it in a very sort of specific way for your organization. Let's just come to board 10 itself. Okay, so board 10. Well, first of all, it's a significant release. And there are a number of features that we will cover today in detail, and we'll try and actually provide examples of how you could use it rather than just talking about the technology just purely as a sort of, this is what it does statement. So we have the Fast Track, which is a self-service data preparation tool, which is now a power user's capability. We'll demonstrate that and how it could be useful to you as a business owner. We have a bunch of new connectors that we can use to rapidly add data from internal and external sources, including cloud providers. We have some new statistical functions that are now standard, and we've got some significant introduction of board on the cloud and the HTML5, which basically means that we can kind of render a board application onto any device anywhere, and there's some other good stuff as well. Now, I like to think of this as, from a business benefit viewpoint, what we'll be able to show you is using the Fast Tracker to deliver content and insight faster and the value that that brings. So we'll actually show how we can quickly add data to an existing build where, for instance, gives us better insight in order to make decisions more effectively quicker. In terms of the connectors, obviously we're more connected and we're faster. And we could always connect to those devices, but now we have like plugins that make it really simple. In terms of the statistical functions, we've got deeper analytics as standard, and we'll show that. In terms of cloud, there's still the ability to actually put it on premise. We cover all those options. So as you change your strategy in terms of whether you move to the cloud and the timing of that, then effectively it future-proofs your investment. And there's the HTML5, which supports you know, the ability to deploy everywhere, and much, much more. So, I think we've had enough of PowerPoint. What we're going to do is I'm going to actually ask Alberto to take me through the Fast Tracker. So this is a new self-service data preparation capability used by a power user, and it allows business users to create analysis in a few clicks from raw data. Okay, so Alberto, could I take some external data, maybe from Excel, and quickly import it and construct some new content and reports? Is that what I could use it for?
Yeah.
Could I build an application from scratch? Maybe, you know, a completely new use of the application over some HR data for some analytics?
Yes.
And I could do this on the fly.
Of course.
So that's what we're attempting to show, okay? So what Alberto is going to do is I'm going to do the application. I'm going to a fictional example, okay? Let's say we already use Board for planning and management reporting. We've got an example of some sales analysis here. So Alberto, maybe drill around this data. Show us what's actually happening here.
Okay. So in our sales analysis here we have most of the board main capabilities, and here together you see all comparison between actual and budget quantities, some random calculation, variances. Always have in mind together numbers together with charts and visualization of the data, and again the capability as always to input data and store your data within the tool. Okay. In this situation, what we have now is that our analysis are based on a product dimension, plus if we can drill down the information, you see that basically we have some more product categories and the customer information. So again, when we drill down, you know already the tools drill down the same structure as you want. This is time by customer.
So in this example, okay, so we're using it for some sales analysis around products. So I've got some good product information, but I can only drill to a certain level. Okay, look, I'm in this particular case the finance manager. I've identified some other useful information elsewhere in the organization. In my CRM, I've got ways of basically looking at the customer that are a bit more powerful than just looking at the customer ID or the customer number. And I want that additional information quickly added to this so I could get some customer analytics out of this as well. So can you make me, can you do that? I mean, what can we do?
Yeah, so let's gonna use the new Fast Track tool. Okay, so the scope of the Fast Track is just to be able to import raw data inside the tool and to add this information or to a new application or to an existing application, just in 4 steps. Okay, what you can see here is the front-end application available for the power users. Okay, where at the first step, what they decide is to choose from where they want to load the data. It could be a local file on your local machine, from a data warehouse, from a remote file, or even on a cloud source. Okay, we are gonna choose in this example, in our CRM table, for example, I'm gonna look for my customer master information. So we need to import new information related to the customer, and we are gonna add this information to the existing data model. Okay, so just in few clicks we arrive here, where basically what the tool is doing is to analyze your data set, okay, giving you some hints, and then again, which are the dimensions, which are the cubes, which are the values that are around this data set, okay, and of course the user in this moment can decide to check if the information is correct, okay, and choose what to import. So for example, here we want to import some localization information related to the user. We have to analyze and understand if each of these columns could be a code, could be a description, okay? And we just decide what we want to import, okay? So we can ignore some additional information. Again, here you have a resume of what we have, like customer ID, description, distribution channel, zone, regional analysis. And you see already that the tool already predefined some relationship between those dimensions, okay? You are always able to decide if this kind of relationship is needed, is correct or not, so you can always define yes or not. Just refresh the data, everything looks fine, so we are going to import 3 new entities and merge into the existing application.
So just to summarize, basically, I identified some useful information in my CRM in this particular example. You'll call that information. You're going to add this a way to look at the customer to this current data set. So we should be able to actually quickly refresh our analysis and start to drill around that. So that's what you've done.
So we are ready to import this new information into our sales analysis. Let's go. Okay, in this moment, remember before we drill down, what we have now are these additional information. As we define, they are related to the customer. Okay, and again, from here, I can decide to move down with a different kind of analysis by region in our case. Okay, so you see how fast has been to load and merge this data into an existing application. Okay,
great. So I have now got customer analysis alongside my product analysis, so I'm pretty happy. That's great. Okay, so very quickly we can add data. We could have even created this whole thing from scratch from that data in the first place, couldn't we?
Yeah.
So wait a minute. I've got some additional information. I'm a bit greedy here. I've identified another file where we've gone out basically. Actually, no. Let's just take a step back. Let's actually have a look at some of the analytics. Maybe give me a better way of presenting that data so that we can kind of see it more visually. I don't mind charts and I don't mind tabular data, but is there? Can I use a new charting object basically to kind of better represent that data that we've just pulled in?
Yes. What Board is providing to you is this new data set of object available for the final user, completely new, starting from Board version 9. Okay, and here, for example, we are gonna add a tree map object. Okay, the way of configuring the object is always the same. Okay, so to be very fast, we can just copy the information from our layout and define and set up our tree map object. Okay, so we decide what we want to show, actual values, budget, and variance, and we can use one of these information as a color series inside our tree map object. Let's put some different information. Okay, so this is
great. Okay, so that's perfect. So you pulled some information in. I'm not just looking at a tabular view. I'm now using one of the more visual objects to give me a better idea of where variance is in proportion to the product category and the region. And I'm able to drill on that. I'm able to look at the table form. I could put that. I could, continue to further manipulate that. That's wonderful. So you're changing the measure now. Rather than looking at actual quantity, we're now looking at budget quantity. That's perfect. So there's an example of some of the new visual ways of presenting this data, quickly added to this example to get a better view of performance. I find that very useful. So let's just go to another example. Like I said, I started to touch on it before, but I've now identified the coordinates for this data in an additional file somewhere else. Maybe I could have potentially pulled it from Google
Okay.
Analytics or whatever.
Okay, so
those coordinates I want to add. Could you show me how I could add those coordinates and maybe, use a mapping object to actually show that visually?
Yeah, so what we need is to localize this information within our file, local source. I'm going to import these new values, coordinate related. Again, merge this information into the existing application. By region, I have latitude, longitude information. I just merge into my application. And now, using an additional object which is available from board version 9, we create a map, configure it. We need, of course, to define which are the coordinates for this information. Okay. And, of course, here we have an example by region, and we just set up the map. So we have to tell the object which is the latitude value, which is the longitude value, and again, what to show in the map, so which information, okay, and how to color and to give alerts on this information. Okay, so as you can see,
great. Okay, now we did it at the regional level, but I couldn't pull the coordinates for every specific customer or every specific sale. Well, there's a very quick example of how I could add information to an existing build that could give you much more powerful insight and context, and an example of how I could use some of the latest sort of visual features. I still see a lot of configurations out there that use tabular views. It's very quick and very powerful to add a lot of this, let's say more visual BI, dashboard style presentation. And obviously from that map we can drill down to the typical table forms and drill around the transactions and basically look at them, slice and dice, do whatever we want, potentially open it up and even update a budget or a forecast from a view like that. So that's pretty powerful. So I'm just going to stop there and I'm going to ask a poll question again. Okay, from what you've seen, okay, where do you feel the data sense feature could be useful in your business? It's a poll question. So we're going to go pause. I'll give you all a little bit of time to pick some result and we'll have a look at what's going on. Okay, so I think a lot of out there basically say that, well, how quickly you could add a data to an existing concept. Do you think the concept of a customer or a supplier or a product or a location, a resource like an employee, think how quickly you could add information that would provide a lot of context out there and really, really build value into your applications. I think that's a very good use. Construct POCs, I think that's a classic use. I mean, if, for instance, in a build activity with an implementation now, maybe we use this as the first place we would construct a POC as a build for that rapid development capability. I mean, you could take that on yourselves. Let's have a look at a new HR application. Let's do some analysis. Let's build a construct. Let's have a look at what it's like. And obviously then moving that into a new application, so adding data to new applications. What we showed you, by the way, was adding coordinates and adding customer data and hierarchies and views. It could equally be a measure. So maybe I could have identified maybe some labor rates or some labor hours that could have been relevant to this, and I could have added that. So it's not just limited to master data, ways of describing things. It's also measures, and it can combine both from multiple sources. So that's an extremely powerful function. So While we're actually here, I'm going to ask Alberto to just show me some of the new Board 10 statistical functions, which are a feature of the product. So Alberto, maybe you could show us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So behind our layout now are available, okay, you can always create your algorithm as you did till now, okay, but even now it's even easier for power user to go in some particular measure and define some analytical functions. So here there is a list of possible analytical functions available to the users, okay?
Yeah, and look, like I said, you could always build these calculations. You could always done that in the past. And in fact, the actual board application has a predictive module called Beam, which handles predictive analytics and clustering. What they've done is they've taken some of the calculations and algorithms from that, and they've applied it as standard in the typical layouts and configuration of the product now. So they've taken those and basically added them to this layout. And look, you know, you might have, you know, obviously, this is a capability waiting to find an opportunity if you think about it. You might not necessarily use it, but we do a lot of you know, applications in the field of things like demand planning, where things like Holt winters or time series forecasting using that triple exponential smoothing method is absolutely, you know, at the heart of basically many of the solutions out there. So to actually have a function that you could just turn on rapidly and apply is very powerful. Even concepts like nascency, frequency, and recency. You know, really, you know, how frequent is customer spend or customer interaction? When was the last time they spent with us? You know, so all those sort of things basically are quickly relevant. Now we can just add them in. So maybe, Alberto, you could show one of these basically being used.
So let's move here. And for example, imagine on a dashboard style, okay, we can create some quick KPIs, okay, using our information. So let's suppose we are going to choose our budget information, and with the analytical functions, we want to know which is the maximum values, okay. We can choose a time range, for example, define on which time entity we want to analyze these numbers, okay. Okay. So here, what we have is the top, let's call it our top value for a particular month. And the same very quickly, I can go in and choose another analytical function. Minimum value, and let's say the average.
Okay. And when you see it like that, you know, you could mess around with calculations and formulas and create all sorts of things to try and get that result. And we've done that very quickly using those statistical functions. And they're the simple ones. I mean, there's some more sophisticated ones in there as well. So that's pretty powerful.
Exactly. So imagine before maybe to retrieve this kind of information and do this kind of calculation, you have to create procedures. You need some technical expert in order to be able to retrieve these numbers. Okay. Now you have the opportunity to have this number at a glance.
Yeah.
And as you saw, it's very, very easy.
Yeah. Now, okay. So look, that's great, and I think you've shown some good examples of visualization, so we won't have a look at any more of those. But I'm going to ask another poll question here, because I think the new charting, visualization, and statistical functions add a lot of value, basically, to you know, a lot of the configurations out there. So the poll question, or the third one, is how well do you feel you are using Board's BI and analytical capabilities? I'm going to ask that out there, and we'll see basically what the result is. have a look at that result. Should come up soon. So there you go. So that's kind of, it's not a surprise. 75% not at all. Like I said, many of the projects and implementations often start at that, the primary goal being improved budgeting, or the primary goal basically being management reporting, whatever. And a lot of this basically, I've got to say, the visualization, a lot of the statistical functions can be applied by you, as in the business, and they should be addressed through training, and you could very quickly add value to an existing configuration, very quickly. So that's excellent. Okay, so that's a useful poll. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly go back to the PowerPoint and just summarize what we've just seen. So we talked about the data fast track, and just to sort of, self-service data preparation. And it's pretty powerful. Just to home in, it's not just flat files, CSVs, Excel files that we can import. It's enterprise data, and it's external data. So again, a lot of flexibility in the tool. By the way, at the back end of the application, in the data reader function, which is, again, for the business users here, it's probably a function you're not even aware of. This capability was always there. We've just made it a power users tool. Okay? So we democratized it. We've made it easier for business users to use it without any prior knowledge in 4 steps. So I kind of wanted to quickly summarize those benefits. Okay? Business users tool, almost beyond self-service. I mean, self-service, we tend to think about going in and, self-serving with, dashboards and so on. You're really self-serving the data preparation. You're adding context, and then you're quickly analyzing it. That's pretty powerful. Speed to delivery. We saw how quickly we actually added value to that existing build. A simple example as it is, but it doesn't matter. It could be a lot more. There could be a lot more data behind that. And that kind of gives you that expanded insight. That ability to suddenly, for instance, add the customer's perspective gives me another view of how product was doing in terms of performing. Adding the coordinates might allow me to zero in on where is my problem geographically with which sales team. So also the cost of improvement. If you could add it that quickly, then I don't need to wait for someone else to do it. Okay, and the cost of identifying the opportunity and actually putting in the improvement is relatively minimal, and it's fast. So I think there's some benefits that I identified. Now, just beyond that, the version isn't all about, there is more to it in terms of, we just touched on it. When we were using the fast tracker, Alberto pointed to this connector and the ability to open it and connect to, a third-party data source. And when we used the load file from CSV, but you saw the 4 boxes, if you remember. So there's now a whole bunch of connectors to relational databases, to cloud applications such as, dynamic CRM, to, standard protocols such as REST APIs and so on. So those connectors are configured so that you can implement them quickly and configured specifically for those data sources. So that saves, again, a lot of work in you creating some unique custom configuration. You can now pull in one of those connectors and very quickly join up data from multiple sources and blend it. You can use it basically in that fast tracker, but you can use it behind the scenes as well in terms of normal procedures, importing and exporting data. That's pretty powerful. So the other big news is that Board is now available on the cloud. So we can now sign in on a unified portal, cloud.board.com. You can get to all your applications. Board Cloud is software as a service version of Board. Effectively, the all-in-one platform that you're probably used to. It can handle all the different use cases that you use it for, whether it's budgeting, analytics, or both. It's backed by Amazon Web Services and Microsoft Azure. and it's designed to actually offer a seamless connection to your on-premise and cloud data systems. And this is very important. You still have applications that are on-premise, probably, data sources, and you still potentially might want to, for instance, connect to other clouds. So it offers you that capability, and this is really important as well. I think this is a very important feature that's often passed by. Board also supports writing back from cloud to on-premise. So it has a secure tunneling connection, and this way your planning data stored in Board can easily be integrated back to your underlying systems. And that quite often is a usual case, because usually you need the final budget or plan to be passed back to the underlying application where it potentially is used there. So again, you might, for instance, want information in here to be added to your enterprise data warehouse. Whatever it might be, we can connect, and that could be a bi-directional process. So I've got a poll question. There's a few of the benefits that I've kind of outlined here. And look, today isn't a session purely on cloud. I mean, PA provides private hosting. We have a range of different cloud technologies. So we're familiar with actually identifying and helping businesses identify what the business case is with cloud deployments. I'm not going to talk about that today because it's a complete topic in itself. But needless to say, these are some of the cloud benefits basically Board would highlight. The reliability factor, the cost effectivity in not having your own infrastructure, and look, let's face it, I think it's the direction most businesses are going. So you might have a very specific cloud strategy, or for instance you might be considering it. And again, it doesn't mean that on-premise version is not available. Many technologies out there will give you a one or the other approach, where you basically can mix it up and allow you to pick your own timing. So I'm going to ask a poll question. And the poll question is how relevant is cloud to your organization's future strategy with Board? And again, just ask you for some input, and then we'll look at the results. There you go. I mean, very relevant to 25% of our audience. Like I said, 38% might not know, but look, it just puts it out there. I've got to say, it's going to be a talking point. If it's not this year, it's going to be a talking point next year. Some organizations come to us and they're very clear. We're a cloud-based organization. This is our strategy. That's what you need to meet. Others are, well, we need to know that we can kind of move from one type of deployment to another, and just put it in the back pocket as being future-proof. You can have that discussion at whatever point you need to. But anyway, look, it's there, it's available, and that's big news for Board 10. So just basically a couple of the other features. Board 10 is now available in HTML5. Look, for business users, you go, whoopee, what does that mean? But look, really what it means is you can get to it via any device. It's responsive technology. It's a consistency experience. There was always, we've obviously got the Board mobile, and we had the ability to deploy over the web. This really kind of expands that out. It really does mean that really we can access it via a tablet, even our mobile. And there are some benefits there. Consistent user experience, modern interface, and that again is, again, big news in terms of, Board 10. So I won't go on too much about that, but what we want to do is just go back to the technology, and while the application is open, we'll just cover off some of these other things as well. Look, we can't cover every feature, okay, and there's some smaller sort of, improvements, and so we'll keep away from those, but I might highlight one that really kind of I see as value, and again, I think maybe often unknown within the user community out there. Board, we can create some great new looking sites easy navigation, great user experiences, customer specific to you, or even role specific. Look, we could always do that. What I want to do is highlight some features within the technology, within the current version, that make that even simpler. Okay, and again, when we open up the ribbon bar, basically, which Alberto is doing now, do realize that as a power user or as a user of the system, you'd probably never go near this. But that shows you how quickly it is to actually configure and design. So that's where we are. As we're using it as showing you how we design things, not just basically about that end user experience where they just navigate around the site. But maybe, Alberto, you could take us through one or two specific features. Notably, the corporate identity designer.
Yeah. So basically, this one is an introduction of board 10, and it just allows, let's say, power user who are, let's say, responsible to create the front end of the application to create and predefine object format, object colors, object font. So you can see that for each of these objects, you can predefine which will be the output. Okay, so all the graphical options, the headers, company coloring. Okay, so remember, you have two options always. Is to decide, okay, build this corporate identity designer at the beginning, so you will be able to filter out, let's say, the useless settings that you will never use, or keeping with the traditional way where you are able to choose any of the possible settings in terms of font, format, coloring, and so on. Okay?
So that's great. So what we can do here is quickly create a corporate identity and have that applied to every object. So as a power user, might add that on, or as I build out my uses of this, I might maybe move it from budgeting to, for instance, HR analytics or whatever. I, in effect, can quickly make sure that there's a consistent look and feel around that across all those different uses. So that's powerful, and again, it might be something that people were unaware of. There is another feature that, again, I think adds very quickly to being able to create configurable sites that can easily be navigated around, and again, often forgotten. And I'll get Alberto to basically show that. There's a menu widget as well, isn't there?
That's a new menu object, starting from board version 9. And again, when you build an application, you want to understand how the user will navigate throughout your application. And there are always many options. So this new object just gives you, again, more and more flexibility. Okay. So what you can do is to drag down the object, okay, and define configure, let's say, all the screens that you want to see within your menu. So you can configure a sitemap where, as you can see, here you will have, of course, here we have just a couple of screens, but you will be able to move the screen under your menu, okay, create new subgroups if you need. And from this moment on, imagine a home page or something similar, you can define your menu object as a flat, different coloring, different format, and basically instead of having buttons here, okay, so you can use this new menu object just to navigate throughout your application. Okay, so it's very simple to use, okay, and can be integrated into an existing application. So imagine how many opportunities you can have. I mean, it's just a matter to decide how do you want to show.
Yes, and that's the thing, is you're building a user experience. You want people to quickly navigate through that. You know, you only have to amend that menu once, and effectively everywhere you've deployed it is a standard way of getting around your site. So look, it's just another way of navigating around, and again, it just focuses on the fact that Board is very much focused on creating simple user experiences. So what we do is we're going to go back to the slides and just wrap up, really. So I haven't covered everything, but I just wanted to remind you what we have seen. So we've seen the fast tracker. I think a lot of value in that. Those connectors, obviously, we've just touched on them. We haven't shown them today, but again, it just broadens the horizon and the speed at which you can connect to external data back and forth. The analytical functions, I thought that was a very simple use, but a very effective use by Alberto to add some value and highlight, for instance, what could be a big table of data. Let's see the key results up here. The cloud, big announcements around that. The HTML5 giving you that flexibility to reach in from any particular device, and some of those other sort of more discrete hidden features which add a lot of value. So that's what we covered. I just want to summarize what I think it provided you. So let's just quickly go through this. Faster time to value, more connected, deeper analytics, future-proofing it with the cloud technology, deploying it everywhere, and much more. I mean, that's how I put it from a business viewpoint. I'd be pretty happy if, for instance, I could turn around to Alberto and say, add this view of customer into my database, and suddenly walk away as an informed decision maker with my business with better insight. And to do that rapidly within, for instance, a quick conversation. Okay. So, questions and answers. I'm just going to look down at some of the questions. We asked you or encouraged you to put questions during the course of the session. I have a few here. It's not too late to add a few, so I'll just cover the first one I can see. Just let me read this. Could we use the fast tracker to help with the deployment of some new requirements? We've got some HR data and we're wanting to build some dashboards for it. Yeah, look, I think that's a very good use of it. So quite often, for instance, you'll find there's pools of data in different locations. If you can extract that into a very rapid proof of concept alongside your existing build with pretty well minimal risk, build some dashboard content on it, you could probably do that very rapidly. Like, it's often about getting good data out, so I won't diminish the fact that, for instance, if you can't get it from the source, then there might be some work to do, but you could always stage it in Excel and tidy it up and bring it in. Or, for instance, you could make it direct to source. So yes, absolutely. Very good. Another question here. Do those chart map types exist from what version onwards? And how do I get them? Is the question. So maybe if I could ask Alberto just to be precise about the examples we showed.
Yeah, all these new chart objects, and not only the chart objects, but even the data view rendering, has been completely reviewed and rebuilt starting from board version 9. Okay, so it's available if you need, for those who need to update to board version 9 or 10. Okay, you will get this new object available. And in terms of flexibility in building, for example, the data views, okay, there are just some, let's say, easy but new functionalities that from a development point of view are very useful and much quicker and much more flexible when you need to create some complex reports.
I've got a good question here. We're going through a current configuration on the version 9. It started a few months ago. Should we consider version 10? Look, I think we should probably be actively involved in those types of discussions during the course of a project, and we're working with you on the risks and benefits around that. Obviously, if we've done a significant build in the earlier version, there shouldn't be much to an upgrade. So I would just reach out, have that discussion, consider it, because it's a good point. And so I'd take that on a case-by-case viewpoint, discuss that with your current project manager and consultant, and go from there. Okay, so those are 3 questions. Do we have any more time for questions? No. Okay. Right. Okay, look, what I would say is that I would encourage you to, following this session, it's been an information session. So what I would encourage you to is have a discussion and a follow-up with your account manager. Discuss it with them. You know, from there, if, for instance, you might have a deep dive basically on some of the features that you've said. From there, maybe it's worth reviewing your current build to exploit some of the analytics. Consider when the upgrade timing. Maybe you want to have a conversation about to us about your transition to cloud. Maybe there's a future strategy there. There's all sorts of possibilities and discussions around that. So obviously, there needs to be a case-by-case situation, but I just encourage you to reach out, talk to your account manager. Your account manager will probably contact you and kind of follow up anyway, just to sort of get your feedback on today's session. I think it's always useful to know, you know, what did we do well, what could we have articulated better. So we're always looking for feedback and ideas for future sessions as well. So I just encourage you to do that. And on that note then, I would thank you for joining. I appreciate the time that you've actually set aside to join us today, and I hope that was useful. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much.